Hello, good day. It's Wednesday and it's 2 o'clock. So it's Wednesday and at 2 is when I go live with a cooking demo. And sometimes folks watch and sometimes they watch later, and that's fine. My name's Karen Pullen, and I have a mission in life to normalize plant-based eating and plant-based cooking and the plant-based diet, and just showing people how easy it is to eat whole foods plant-based, but also to sort of plantify some recipes that are typically made with animal products. And that's one of the things I'm going to do today, which is to make a quiche. And not use any eggs and not use any cheese. Hi, Anita. Thanks for being here. I can always count on Anita. She's a stalwart viewer, and I really appreciate that. Today I'm going to make a quiche. I'm going to use tofu. Hi, Diane. I'm really glad to see you here too. Thank you very much for showing up. So this is I think it's an easy recipe. We're going to use tofu that we have to kind of make creamy in the food processor. And then we're going to mix it up with some vegetables that I'm going to cook ahead of time. I also did pre-bake a crust. And this today I just used a crust that I purchased. If you look at crusts in the freezer section of the grocery store, just read the labels, because a lot of them have lard. We don't want that. But Marie Claire, I think that's the brand. Marie Claire makes a plant-based pie crust. It's not the healthiest. It's got a few ingredients I wouldn't put in my own pie crust, but it sure makes it easy to have a pie crust that just in your freezer. In fact, I'll show you. I already baked it. You can see it's a slightly golden color. I baked it about 10 minutes, and that was at 400 degrees. And when you purchase it, you get 2 of them, which is great, because now I have another one. I'm going to make this again on Saturday in 2 days, because I have a cooking class here. We're going to make this same dish. So what I'm doing today is sort of trying it out. And I've already looked at the recipe, and I've already decided to make a couple changes. So after I do this live, I'm going to go to the recipe and make a couple little edits. Just a couple. It's basically 99% exactly the same. So the crust is ready. The first thing I'm going to do is press the tofu. So for this recipe, I'm using just firm tofu, and I have a tofu press. So I'm going to just open the package and press the tofu just for a few minutes to get some of the water out. So I know you can't see what I'm doing. I just cut across the package here. I'm going to drain it into my sink a little bit before I remove it from the packaging. Just cutting the rest of this packaging off. Okay, so there's my block of tofu. I've used this tofu press for many years. I think I bought it on Amazon. Just slide it in there and then tighten the little knobs here to do the pressing. And it's already starting to squeeze some water out, so I'm just going to move it to my sink. Okay. So I want to start cooking the vegetables, because that's actually probably the longest part of this, is just getting these sauteed up. Okay, so I just, I'm going to use my, let's see. I think I plugged in the wrong appliance. Hold on. There we go. Yeah, I plugged in the food processor, and we will be using that. But for now, I'm just going to use the saute pan here, so you can see it. So it's really good to get pack as many vegetables into this as you can. So you can see I've got already cut up some onions and garlic. I sliced up some mushrooms. I'm going to start with the onions and garlic. Get the aromatics a chance to cook. Let me just check the temperature on this. I've got to walk around to the side to look at the temperature. Okay, it's an electric skillet. So I'm putting it on about 325, and we'll get that to cooking here. The other things I'm going to add to this after these cook for a few minutes, I'm going to add the mushrooms. So the recipe called for sun-dried tomatoes. I happen to have a fair amount of grape tomatoes, so I decided to use those instead. The only difference being these have a lot of liquid in them, so I want to add them fairly early on and let the liquid cook out. So we're going to add those when we add the mushrooms. And we'll let those cook. Another thing I'm going to add, because I just tried this the other day and I really liked it. It's, I don't know if you can see that, Harvest soy, it's made from soy, it's plant-based, jerky. And it's got a really smoky taste and a little bit of a chew to it. Kind of reminds you, though it's been about 35 years since I had bacon. It probably is not like bacon, but it reminds me of what bacon might be. Oh, if I can get it open, I will show it to you. Can't get that open. I'm going to cut the top off it. I'm just going to add a little bit of this. I'll probably cut it up. You can see what it looks like. It kind of almost looks like, well, it's like jerky is what it is. It's basically, and I'm sure this would not be difficult to make if you were so inclined, because the main ingredient is Butler soy curls, which I use in my cooking from time to time. And the rest is oil, molasses, vinegar, and then some sort of seasoning like smoke flavor, onion, dried red pepper, etc. It just is I'm just going to cut this into little bits and add it to my quiche. So quiche is normally made with eggs and cheese. So a lot of people would say this is not quiche because it doesn't have eggs or cheese. But the tofu is going to replace the eggs, and it's going to, for cheese, we're going to add some nutritional yeast, and we're going to add some herbs. I'm going to add a little black salt. If you're not familiar with that, I can show you that. I use that fairly often because it's kalanamak, India black salt. It's actually sort of pinkish. It's got a sulfuric flavor to it. And I don't know if you realize this, when you eat eggs, they actually have that flavor, that sulfuric flavor. So the India black salt is going to add a little bit. We're going to add a touch of it. A little goes a long way. We're going to add a touch of it to our next tofu and things like that. Okay, so the onions and garlic are starting to stick a little bit. So I'm going to add just a touch of veggie broth. Oops. That will cook off. We actually want this filling not to be really liquid when we pour it in. to the crust. In fact, that's one reason you pre-bake the crust, is because if you don't pre-bake it and you put a filling in it, it sometimes gets soggy. And we don't want a soggy. You ever watch the Great British Baking Show? It's like, oh, you don't want a soggy bottom. So we don't want a soggy bottom. Okay, these onions and garlic, I think, are almost there. You kind of tell when they get soft. I'm going to go ahead and process the tofu now. I don't know. I don't think you can see, but I will move it maybe where you can see. I know what I'm going to do is tip the phone. There. Get the tofu out of my sink. Where it has been draining. And I'm just going to break it up and put it into the food processor. We're going to process this until it's pretty creamy. That's the plan. Let's see if it works. Okay. Let me walk around here where I can turn it on. Getting there. Okay, I'm going to test it and see if I think it's creamy enough. It's definitely very soft. Yeah, I think it's fine. It's what I'd call very spreadable. I don't know if you can see, it's pretty soft. So that was not very long. That was maybe 2 minutes. So that's good. We're just going to leave that for now because I need to finish cooking up these vegetables. I'm going to throw in the mushrooms and tomatoes next. These will release a lot of liquid, which we want to cook down. Get this out of the way. I've also got the oven preheated to 375. So we're going to cook the quiche. I think for about 20 minutes. What did I say in my recipe? Nope, it says 33 to 37 minutes. I'm going to test it after 20 minutes. So I won't be showing you that part. I won't be doing that live, obviously. I'm going to be live until the point where I put it in the oven. Then I'll do what I did last week. I'll come back after it's cooked and after it's cool, and I will try to film what it looks like when you cut into it. Actually, I think my husband should be home by then, and maybe we can show him cutting into it. He's not here on Wednesday afternoons, and so he usually comes in just about the time I'm finishing up, and he appreciates the chance to be my taste tester. So I was just looking at some of the comments. Diane said she likes things with a smoky flavor. So these are cooking up pretty quickly. I think I have my, my, what's this thing called? Saute pan, frying pan. I think I have it plenty hot enough, maybe a little too hot. I'm getting some stickage on some of the edges. I'm going to turn it down just a few degrees. But these are cooking really quickly. I just want to release the liquid. I think I'll go ahead and add the herbs at this point. Get my recipe so I don't get the wrong amounts. So the recipe that's on my website calls for basil, but I didn't have any basil fresh. It's not that time of year yet. I do have a lot of dry basil, so I'm going to go ahead and put in 2 teaspoons of dry basil. Oh, I love the smell of basil. Just love that. So good. I'm also going to put in it calls for oregano, which I don't have. And that's kind of strange. I think I've just used it all up. I'm going to put in the black salt, a very, very small amount. I think just 1/4 of a teaspoon. This stuff is powerful. I'm going to add, let's see, I'm going to add a little cayenne, just a tiny bit, another spice that goes a long way. I'm going to add some regular salt. So this is just regular sea salt. The recipe calls for a teaspoon. That seems like a lot. Another modification I might make to this recipe. I'm going to add about maybe 3/4 of a teaspoon. I like salt. Most of us eat way too much salt. So trying to cut back a little bit. And then I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast. We buy it in bulk because we use it in a lot of things. Nutritional yeast adds a cheesy flavor. I think that's everything. Maybe a little black pepper. Okay, the only thing, this is great, the liquid is gone from these vegetables. So all I'm going to add next is the spinach. So I bought a bunch of spinach. I cut the stems off, and this is what's left. And I know the recipe says 1 cup of baby spinach. This is probably 3 cups, but you know it's going to disappear when I put it in here. It will cook down to nothing. And I don't think you can have too much spinach in your quiche anyway. Okay. I'm going to put the lid on that and let that cook for a minute. And I'm going to get the tofu out of the food processor. I got to get some leverage on it. Okay, here's my tofu. Get that off. Let's scoop it into a bowl. I first thought I might be able to just put everything into the frying pan, but it's pretty full. So I'm just going to use a big bowl. and get this tofu into the bowl, and then we can mix the vegetables in and we'll be all set. Get my blade out. I don't know what we did before food processors. Does anybody remember back that far? So on Saturday, I'm doing a class and the theme is pies. And we're making this again with the group. And then, but we're also going to make a chocolate pie out of tofu, which is a wonderful recipe. It's basically firm tofu like this. And then it's got cocoa and maple syrup. It makes it nice and sweet. And I add some melted chocolate chips because that helps it firm up once it's chilled. But that's another thing you can do with tofu. It makes just like chocolate mousse. Nobody will know it's tofu. You can fool everybody with that if you have to. All right, let's look at these vegetables because I have a feeling. Look at that spinach. It's disappeared. Okay, I just want to mix this up a little bit and then we'll add it to the tofu. So I still have some spinach stems. I don't know if you can see. There's still some spinach stems in the spinach. You see them? So if you were using, baby spinach that you can buy in those bags at the supermarket, you would not have those stems. There's quite a bit of liquid in here. I'm going to let it cook a minute and get the liquid out. So my thought was to just add the tofu to the frying pan, which I could have done. There's plenty of room in here. That spinach is basically disappeared completely. Trying to mix it up a little bit. So there's plenty of room for the tofu. I'm going to turn the frying pan off now. Everything's cooked. Liquid's pretty much gone. Yeah. So I'm just going to add it to my bowl. And then we're going to mix it up and put it into the pie crust. Yeah, my class on Saturday, we're making 5 different kinds of pies. We're making this quiche. We're going to make pizza like I made last week with a plant-based mozzarella. I'm going to make key lime pie with a meringue, and that's really interesting to do. We use aquafaba for the meringue, and I am going to make 2 dessert pies. One's the chocolate. I just mentioned the key lime pie. The chocolate pie, key lime pie, pizza pie, quiche, and then we're going to make a pot pie, which uses puff pastry. Hi, Carmen. Yeah, it'll be fun to have you here, Carmen, if you're ever in town. I live in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and these cooking classes are in my house. So I think you all can see I am stirring the vegetables into the tofu. The tofu is really lovely and creamy. I'm going to get it mixed up really well. And then I'm going to put it into the pie crust. So this is my testing. I'm just testing this recipe before I actually fix it with a group here on Saturday. I always like to test those recipes. And it's best to do it when I don't have real people around. It's just me and my husband. Okay, that looks like that's very well mixed. I'm going to move this saute pan. And bring the pie crust over. So again, this was a Marie Claire frozen pie crust. It's plant-based. It didn't have any lard in it. It was frozen, so I let it thaw. The directions were let it thaw 10 minutes. It thawed. Then I poked it with fork. I don't know if you can see all the little holes. It said poke vigorously or generously. Put a lot of holes in it, and I did. Even so, it did still puff up a little bit. I don't know if you can see that. The point of the holes is to release the steam that's generated and give it some space to expand a little bit as it cooked. But it's a really pretty crust. It has one crack, not a big deal. All right. Let's put this in here. If you can see what I'm doing. So the color of this quiche, it's got a slightly brown color, and that's from the mushrooms. You can put any kind of filling in this. That's one thing I love about plant-based cooking is it's very adaptable. So you could do artichokes, you could do bell pepper. I've done it with asparagus. I've done it with broccoli. All of those are perfectly delicious fillings for a quiche. Okay, there it is, pre-baking. And I'm pleased with the way it looks. We'll have to see later if I'm pleased with the way it tastes, because now it's going to have to bake. So the recipe says 33 to 37 minutes. I'm going to check it after 20. I don't want it to get overcooked, and I'm just not sure about it. So we're going to check it after 20. Anyway, that is the recipe. I'm going to go ahead and put this in the oven. Say goodbye. That's what it looks like before baking. Okay, and I set the timer for 20 minutes, so I'll check it then. And afterwards, when I decide it's done, I'm going to take it out and let it cool, and then we'll cut a slice. And I will put a picture of that. I'll put a picture of that in the comments to this post, so you all might get notification about that, and you can come back and look. So thanks for being here. I always appreciate it when people take time out of their day to watch something like this. I know it's not real professional, and I know it just maybe seems a little slow at times because we're not edited. It's just me in my kitchen. But I hope you'll come back next week, next Wednesday. I'm not sure what I'm going to make yet. Oh, shoot. Cheryl, you're right. I forgot the jerky. Darn it. All right. I'm going to take it out. It's because I was looking at the recipe. It didn't mention jerky. Haha. I'm really happy she said that. I think I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit on top and maybe then poke it down inside. So I'm going to use some scissors. I'm just going to cut it up. I should have put this in the bowl when I was mixing everything up. But this is the way things are. And I often do forget an ingredient. we're just going to put in a little so that when people are biting into this, they'll just get that tiny little bit of flavor, extra pop of flavor. Okay. Nita said nobody's perfect. I gave up being perfect a long time ago. All right, I'm just going to kind of push this in inside. So I don't really want it on top because I'm afraid it's going to dry out. It's already pretty dry. There we go. I'm spreading the filling over the top of it. I'm glad that Cheryl noticed that. This isn't even hot. So it really didn't even get very hot. Okay, I restarted the timer. All right, so thanks for being here, and come back next, maybe later. I will hopefully have a sliced piece to show you, and I'll let my husband have a taste. He's just come in, and he can let you know if it's any good. He'll probably say it's fine because he always says that. Okay, so we'll see you next time, next Wednesday, 2:00. Thanks for being here.